Well, this series is on transformational travel, inspired by the fact that we now have a vaccine. Hallelujah. That translates into hope. Now, for some of you, maybe some of you have a thing against vaccinations. I understand that. But it's really what the vaccine represents that elicits my hallelujah. Medical experts, well, at least Dr. Fauci, indicates we are moving toward herd immunity. The world is about to open up to us again. And that's exciting news. It's the first seeds of an impending pan-euphoria, I believe. But are we ready to open ourselves to the world, to meet it in a way that is life-expanding, transformative? Does that seem a strange question to ask? Well, I hope it won't seem strange by the end of this talk. Many of us will want to travel in 2021. This pandemic has produced a global cabin fever. And here are some words I hope will inspire us. Let's take a moment to read them. The world is a book, and those who do not travel read only a page. St. Augustine. This one from Anatole France. Wandering reestablishes the original harmony which once existed between man and the universe. And of course, Mark Twain, 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things that you didn't do than by the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail away from the safe harbor, catch the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, discover. Travel is more than the seeing of sights. It is a change that goes on, deep and permanent in the ideas of living. Miriam Beard. Why do you go away? So that you can come back, so that you can see the place you came from with new eyes and extra colors. And the people there see you differently too. Coming back to where you started is not the same as never leaving. Terry Pratchett. And then this one from Maya Angelou. Perhaps travel cannot prevent bigotry, but by demonstrating that all peoples cry, laugh, eat, worry, and die, it can introduce the idea that if we try and understand each other, we may even become friends. Are any of you dreaming about a warm place by a turquoise sea, or a great international city full of history, high-level cuisine, amazing museums and cultural attractions? If some of us don't have boarding a plane on our wish list, then maybe we simply want to drive to a different town or a different part of our own town. For some of us, exploration may simply mean trying a different restaurant. Whatever your current wishes, this pandemic has produced a profound sense of cabin fever, and we are all ready for it to end. So we should all be ready to take a journey of exploration, even if we're traditionally homebodies, because travel can indeed transform. Paul Gauguin had Wanderlust. Here we see his impression of the French Caribbean island of Martinique. Ah, who doesn't love the beauty of the Caribbean? Well, Gauguin didn't love it enough to stay. He was looking for the Garden of Eden, a place of beauty and innocence, unspoiled by modern civilization. So he ventured on to Tahiti. And here he felt he'd found the closest thing to Eden. And yet he would later feel disillusioned with Tahiti as well. Gauguin would have benefited greatly by first discovering the Garden of Eden that was inside of him, before he looked for one in the world. In fact, if Gauguin had taken a closer look within himself, he would have realized that he had already left the garden. We all long to return to the garden, at least in a metaphorical sense. But we left the garden in order to pursue wisdom, painfully wrought wisdom. You see, there are two kinds of travel, an outward journey and an inward journey. The former is an exploration of our world, including the mystery of our fellow humans. The travel offering the most possibilities for personal transformation has always been cross-cultural, with close, perhaps intimate interaction with the local population. With such interaction with locals, we inevitably end up losing some of our prejudices, at least, some of our presuppositions about the way life is and ought to be. We have expanded in some way, in other words. Travel truly can transform. But the degree to which it transforms us is dependent on how far we have journeyed inwardly. As you know, I like to recommend books on occasion, and for our topic today, I highly recommend this one, The Art of Travel by Alain de Botton. You may recognize that author because I've recommended several of his other books. In this book, Alain de Botton extols the benefits of travel, but with one caveat, one very large caveat. Let me ask you, have you ever traveled to a beautiful place and enjoyed yourself initially, and yet at some point on the journey became a little restless? Even maybe developed a sense of vague unease. The usual problem is one de Botton expressed eloquently in this book. He says the only problem with travel is that we take ourselves with us. Alain de Botton is speaking of the necessity of the other kind of journey, the inward journey, if we want to have a successful outward journey. This kind of travel is more important because it prepares us to get the most out of exploring our world. So while we wait a little longer for this wondrous opening up of our world, let's take the most important journey first. I want to invite us to prepare ourselves, to know ourselves better, so that we can know our world better, and so that our world can then change us for the better. Where do we start with this inward journey? In this series, I want an ancient bit of spiritual wisdom to be our guide on this quest. I've always loved that word, quest. Quest. Say that word to yourself. Just take a moment and say the word quest to yourself. And take a moment to imagine yourself on a quest. What does a quest look like for you personally? Now here's that ancient bit of wisdom that will guide us in our series on transformational travel. Whoever seeks must seek until they find. When they find, they will be disturbed. And being disturbed, they will marvel and will reign over the all. Having reigned, they will find rest. In the next few weeks, we will examine this wisdom in order to guide us into re-engaging fully again with our world, but hopefully from a wiser place. Today, as I said, we're going to look at the first part. Whoever seeks must seek until they find. Travel, whether inward or outward, is a form of seeking. Too often, we are seeking an escape. We are running away from stress or boredom. But as Alain de Botton warns us, the first few days away may feel like we've escaped, but soon the fact that we have brought ourselves on the journey is going to become clear. To avoid this dilemma, we must go on the inward journey first. We must become mystics, seeking that which truly satisfies. This is a quote from Evelyn Underhill, who wrote a wonderful book on mysticism, and it's simply titled Mysticism. She says, mysticism, the most romantic of adventures, from one point of view, the art of arts, their source and also their end, finds naturally enough its closest correspondences in the most purely artistic and most deeply significant of all forms of expression. What she's telling us is that artists by nature are seekers. They are mystics. They often love to explore the external world, but artists are keen to explore the inner terrain as well. One such artist was Alphonse Ausbert. His dates are 1852 to 1939, and he is a lesser known French symbolist. Now, I was tempted to use the works of the more famous French symbolists like Gustave Moreau or Odilon Redon, but I've used them enough already. So I'm going to introduce you to a new artist that you may be unfamiliar with. Why should we seek in the first place? Well, because we already are seekers. All of us on this planet are seeking something every day, every moment of our life. To be human is to seek. But what we seek is the critical difference between a life of fulfillment and then an existence of frustration, restlessness, and disillusionment. What are we to seek? This is the first question we must answer. Now, most people on this planet are seeking two things: comfort and security. We would love to have a large villa with a mural by Osbert on our balcony, as in this image, so visitors can admire it. Look, I get it. Existence comes with a certain level of pain, anxiety, and stress, and it's natural to want relief from stress and relief from the vicissitudes of life through material success. But every single psychological study on the correlation between material success and general well-being has shown that once basic needs are met, no extra amount of money or power or influence produces a greater feeling of well-being. Only those who use material success to make the world and the lives of others better in some way seem to benefit from greater material prosperity. But there is another call put upon our souls to seek something other than security and comfort. What do you believe is the object of that seeking? St. Augustine described our seeking as a restlessness of the heart and soul, an ineffable longing. Mystics tell us it is a longing for God or the absolute, whatever that means to you. And St. Augustine also tells us that our hearts will never be at rest until they rest in thee. Who is thee for you? Or what is thee for you? Sometimes seeking takes us outdoors at dawn or dusk. We look to stars and celestial bodies and marvel that we exist at all in such a vast universe. It humbles us. Does the seeker in you ever want to visit a mountain or a body of water, as in this image? There is something in our DNA, I think, that finds spiritual sustenance in mountains, lakes, rivers, and seas. At such places, it seems we're better able to take in one deep, pure breath. And somehow we come in contact with something greater than ourselves, something transcendent. Is there such a place close to you that you could easily visit? A place that puts you naturally in a quiet, introspective state. Art, such as this work, often does that for me. And so museums are a place I go to for inner solace and self-understanding. Where would you go? Good art is not what it looks like, but what it does to us. I'll ask you another question. What does art do to you? Art puts me in a contemplative state. It awakens the seeker in me. Where would the seeker in you come alive? We often think of the seeker as a loner, but sometimes we need to share our journey of seeking with others. We need to use friends or strangers as sounding boards. I remember a moment in a tea house in the old city of Jerusalem. Somehow I ended up sitting across from an Englishman who was in rabbinical school, but was in the midst of a crisis of faith. We shared with one another the stories of our spiritual journeys, and after an hour or so, I felt like we were kindred spirits. I also felt that I was somehow wiser for the conversation. He asked me probing questions, which forced me to go to a deeper place within. Often being a part of a larger seeking community helps move us quicker along the path, brings us greater understanding, even if it's a path unique to us. Seek until ye find. Whatever it is that we long for in the deepest part of our being, we are told to not give up until we find. Never give up until we find. That's very difficult in a world full of distractions, constant distractions, beginning with our smartphones. Any of you receive the little pings of notifications every time you have a text or email? It will be very difficult to ever find life-giving nourishment for our heart and soul while living a life full of constant distractions. We in the modern world experience a spiritual death by 1,000 pings. The call to seek is not only about understanding ourselves and our place in this world, it is a call to understand our fellow humans. How many of us were baffled by the behavior of some Americans on Wednesday afternoon who stormed the Capitol building? Or did some of us take the lazy route and just condemn them as buffoons, entirely unlike our progressive and enlightened selves? I hope their behavior sparked curiosity more than condemnation. And it's certainly easy to condemn their behavior. But we must remember that these people are seekers like us. Unfortunately, they have sought to fill their inner void and placate their anxiety and stress with a political ideology. Friends, any of us have the potential to fall prey to a dangerous ideology if we have not found something else to fill the restlessness, the longing in our souls. And I'd venture to guess that the men and women who stormed the Capitol are disillusioned. Stories and principles that once gave meaning to their lives no longer hold sway. Their sacred myths have dried up, cracked, and blown away in the winds of modernity and postmodernity. The world is changing too rapidly for them to adjust. There is a hole in their souls, which is so easily filled by a fundamentalist spirit, which is always the shortest route to a sense of identity. I hope none of us will seek shortcuts to self-understanding or enlightenment. I hope we will take the necessary time and effort to feed our hearts, our minds, our souls in whatever ways work best for us, so that all our journeys have the potential to transform us for the better. And as we transform ourselves, everyone we meet will experience a bit of that transformation, and we really will become a blessing to others.